Like, why not is a very powerful question. I like it. Because when you say why not, oftentimes you can't find any reason.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a great question.
Yes.
Why we should not do this,
Yeah.
right?
Because if you ask why, then you have to bring reasons to justify a position to say, well, the reason we want to do it is because this is happening already. But when you say why not, you're saying what's preventing you from taking that step.
Yeah.
And oftentimes there's nothing.
Yeah. Hello once again. I'm very excited to come back today. And today we're going to have a different conversation. It is still about technology because we're passionate about technology. It is still about innovation because we're very interested about innovation. But today we're going to talk about migration and we're going to talk about education. So Canada has been welcoming immigrants from around the world for years together. This trend only grown in recent times. In the first quarter of 2023, according to government data, we actually welcomed 145,000 new immigrants in Canada. Moving to a new country, it is overwhelming, exciting at the same time, highly challenging, right? As we know. Absolutely. So there is a desire to contribute to the community economy, but also the need to adapt to local living and also to our culture. So being an immigrant myself, this is a very special conversation for me. It's very close to my heart. I'm André Buarque. I do work with the marketing team here at Launchcode, and this is Launchcast. Today I welcome Wunmi Adekanmbi.
Yay, you got it.
Well, Wunmi, she is the founder of two outstanding organizations, ReSkill and Immigrant Techies. So thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Andre.
Yes. Let's make this as a continuation of a conversation we actually had a few weeks ago. That makes sense to you? Is that good to you?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. So conversations around immigration, it is dear to our company. Not only to me, because many of our team members actually speak different languages. If I may remember, 12 languages in total.
That's impressive.
That is impressive. I mean, we're born in different countries, right? So I too myself, as you know, I moved from Brazil to Canada 7 years ago with my beautiful wife and my 2 kids. And recently I became a proud citizen of this beautiful country that I love so much.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
When was that?
That was January.
Oh, that's
January.
great.
Officially be. I actually don't have the passport yet, but soon. As some people do, right? I think the best way to start this conversation, it is actually to discussing our journeys, right? We had this amazing interaction. We had a great, almost 2-hour chat, and that's when I said, you know what, you should come. We should talk about this on Launchcast because this is a valuable conversation from 2 immigrants, and especially to understand a little bit more what you have been doing. So let's start first talking about you, because you have a very interesting background, right? So who is Wunmi? I know I promise not ask this question, but let's talk a little bit about you. Where do you come from? What are you doing over there? And why did you move to Canada?
So I'm originally from Nigeria, and my background was in biochemistry. So I have 2 degrees in biochemistry, and I was teaching that. So I was in academics. I was teaching and doing research in biochemistry. So very nerdy. Very nerdy activities right there. And
it's a lot of study, right?
Oh yeah, it is. I mean, I originally wanted to study medicine, which was why I went the biochemistry route, but as I went on with the program, I kind of fell in love with it. And then along the line I discovered my passion for teaching, for impacting younger people.
Okay.
Because in that environment, the lecturers, the faculty, professors, they wield so much power. They could make or mar a career, They wielded so much power,
Yeah.
and most of them used it negatively.
Right.
Like
Oh,
it
wow.
was a lot of times it was like an abusive relationship. It was very toxic, the way the interaction between lecturers and students was. And I thought, if there's this much power, what will it look like if you wield it positively? So that was really my drive to go into academics. I like the aspect of interacting and coaching students
Uh-huh.
a lot more than the research part at the time. And I just thought, I so much believe in the power of the human potential, like what one single life can do given the right conditions and the right directions. And when people are young, they tend to make, all these choices out of self-expression because they don't really know who they are. They just want to get attention. So I thought, what will it look like if I pour into these young minds and not just teach them biochemistry, but actually life skills, like be that power in the system that's actually for good.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that was my motivation for getting into academics.
That is deep. You actually didn't share that when we talked. I didn't know that. No,
There's so many layers.
it is so many layers because this whole layer of I was seeing how lecturers, professors were wielding,
Oh yeah.
Power, and sometimes in a negative way, and in your mind you said, okay, this is a lot of power. How can I wield that for good? This is amazing. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's what happened right there. And so after a while, something else I was doing that wasn't even my work at the time. So I had founded a nonprofit. We didn't call it that. It was more like I founded a group for teenagers in my community and my church, because there was group for men, there was group for women, group for even young adults, but for children too. There were groups for children, but there was no one catering to that age 12 to 16-ish.
From being a kid to being a young person.
Exactly. And that is the very age where you struggle with your identity. You're like,
oh my,
am I a child?
formational.
Am I a grown up?
Right?
They don't know.
Yeah.
So that was the first thing I did. I was a late teen myself at the time. I was about 18 when I started that, because I just saw that gap that nobody was catering to teenagers. So that's where the love for just helping young minds started, before it then morphed into a profession for me.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So the ability to lead, it was, you could see that still very young, because at the end of the day, we're going to talk about your organizations. It does require a genuine interest on leading people and coaching people and helping people. Has to be. There's no other way. Right. So as you were saying, we can see that already on your youth years, but actually taking care of like this gap within your church, right?
Exactly. Like for me, I didn't call it leadership then. I didn't even think that's what it was. I just thought there's a gap in the system and I can fill it. So why not do it? Right?
That's very cool.
So that's how that has been like the principle for every other thing too that I've done. That is like me starting a new thing. I just feel like there's a gap and I can do something about it. So why not? Like, why not is a very powerful question. I like it. Because when you say why not, oftentimes you can't find any reason.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a great question.
Yes.
Why we should not do this?
Yeah.
Right?
Because if you ask why, then you have to bring reasons to justify a position, to say, well, the reason we want to do it is because this is happening already. But when you say why not, you're saying, what's preventing you from taking that step?
Yeah.
And oftentimes there's nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I like that question.
You know, a question that I like a lot. I ask sometimes some of my colleagues here, especially one of them, is always like, okay, if not now, then when? So then it's kind of moving away even from the question why not.
If not you, then who?
If not you, so who's going to do this, right? So it's interesting seeing. So some of the interesting stories that you just said now. I didn't know, right? So even the youth thing, and so I can see a lot of resonance somehow. But we're gonna touch into that. We're gonna talk about your organization. But I think there's still a part of your story which is you. Okay, at a certain point you decide to come to Canada.
Right.
Right. Okay. So fast forward, you decided to come to Canada. How was that? Why was that? And
Well, I mean, that was a decision we made as a family. My husband, myself, and our one daughter at the time. Now we have two. And honestly, I thought, you know, the market and the way you hear that Canada is looking for you.
yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah.
It was like Canada wants you.
The
Like,
propaganda is really,
Wunmi,
is really
Canada
interesting.
is looking for you. They looked at your skills and they're like, we want her. So for me, I just thought, okay, if it's about teaching and coaching and supporting people, I can do it in Canada as well. Like the idea came originally from my husband. I wasn't initially thrilled because I kind of liked my life. You know, at the time I liked where I was. It wasn't flashy or anything. I was just content. I liked where I was. But you know, you think about opportunities for your children, you think about something to give you more opportunities for impact. At least that's what we thought. So and then coming here, my plan A, of course, was to continue in academics and research, especially because Canada is looking for me. So
Yeah, right.
why would
Of
I?
course, yeah.
Why would I even
We even
doubt
pointing
that?
like they're looking for you, right? That's,
Right. So
remember the Uncle Sam, right? Right, the American needs you. So it's
Exactly.
pretty much how some people felt, right? Or they still feel about it, right?
yeah. So I mean, and then we go here, and I spent the next 3 years trying to get into academics. So, and because my field, you know, is biochemistry, it's heavy research. So it's laboratory equipment. So it's expensive. It's an expensive field to get into. If you wanted to come in through like the faculty position, I was working on a PhD in Nigeria, which I kind of abandoned, thinking it would be easy to start one afresh
Interesting.
in Canada.
So you actually stopped a PhD in Nigeria,
Yes, I did.
in your field.
Yes.
Okay.
So I started that and I stopped it because I thought it was going to be easy to pick another one up. So it turned out it wasn't. And like 3 good years, really. Because I was so bent on this is how I touch people. This is how I show up to the world. Like, this is how I want to impact people. So, but after about 3 years, and then I had to have a sit down meeting with myself to say, okay, what else? What else do you bring to the table? Like, what else can you offer the world? You know? And even when I was in academics and I was lecturing, I was doing other things. I was leading groups, I was managing projects like university accreditation project. I was organizing webinars and seminars for students. I was supervising research projects. I'm like, okay, so project management, I'm already doing that, right?
Yeah.
So that was so that became my first pivot, so to say. But even at that, I was able to get into an environmental company, but I could only start from their most junior level, which is the bench level technician. So they took my science. They're like, okay, you have science background. So yeah, I can be a lab technician, which was barely, like, almost a minimum wage job.
Well, I bet.
Yeah. So that was where I had to start from. And it was from within the organization that I was then able to kind of reinvent myself even the more, and then pivoted into the management of the science. So it's still doing the science and then project managing.
But that's within the same
science.
organization? Was that another one?
It was the same organization.
It was the same
just
organization
different
that
departments.
just different department. So from PhD, not a
Almost
PhD, but
PhD.
almost PhD in Nigeria to an entry level technician.
to 3 years gap first.
3
Yeah.
years first, right?
Yeah.
And then an
And
entry
then
level technician from PhD to entry. Interesting enough, I'm repeating that because this is not only your story. This is the story of many people you know.
Exactly.
And I know. And you probably know way more than myself because of ReSkill and immigrant hackers, right? Yeah, this is a common story. Yeah.
So that was my first pivot. And so what I had done again, most of what I've done with my career, I had to take the initiative. So I'll look at my organization and think, okay, now we're doing project management, but we don't really understand the process. So then I go do a PMP certification, then come back and say, now I know how to do this properly. Right? And then as we went on, I also saw that there was a gap in our organizational change management strategies. Like, we will roll out these great things, they will never get done because you'd never carry people along. So then I went and did a training on that. I had no conversation with any boss or anything. I just thought, there's a gap here. Then I went to get that training. I'll bring it back. And then sometimes they even push back. They're like, yeah, all these fancy things you get and you're doing, you don't need it for this role. When employers see you only in the current role you are, but not your potential or even your past, based on what you have actually done in the past. So it was sometimes a struggle just reinventing myself that way because I was moving against the grain and just living out of my own potential, not the eyes with which they saw me. So even when I was doing all these things, it did not lead to a promotion sometimes, it did not lead to a pay raise sometimes, but I just could not do it. I couldn't see a problem I can solve and then walk away from it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that kind of morphed into working on, then I started getting interested in tech, right? So working on some, we did some work in experience design, customer experience, employee experience. We were trying to work on a customer experience project and then discovered that the employee experience was so bad that there was no equity to push customer experience. So we had to pivot this strategy to, first of all, focus on employee experience. So my coaching skills came in that way as well. So it has just been this interesting weave of story that it is only now that I look back that it makes sense. At the time, it was like my career had no direction, that I was just doing all this, random things. But then when I look back now, I see how every part contributed to like this wholesome life that I now have. I'll put it that way. So yeah, then I started getting interested in tech. So at first it was a love for country, I'll call it like that, like for king and country. I know it sounds cliche, but I really was passionate about Alberta, about Calgary. So I'm like, what's the next thing if oil and gas is not what it used to be? Because I had friends that wanted to come into Canada and they were saying, oh no, we're not coming to Alberta, we're going to BC or Ontario. Your glory days are over. And I'm like, no way, we still have cool stuff here. So I wanted to know what to start telling them. That what will I be telling my friends? So I started following Calgary Economic Development. I wanted to know what they're working on, how are they selling this place. So then I saw the Calgary and the new economy, the digital strategy for Alberta. So I started attending all the tech events. And so that was how I stumbled into the tech space.
And this is way before ReSkill and immigrant tech. We're still talking about you.
Yes. But this is what kind of led to it.
Right? Yeah, that's the thing. So that's all. We didn't talk about this, right? So, which is awesome. 2 hours of conversation. I didn't know that. That is so exciting.
Yeah.
So, okay. So to finish on that thought, as far as I understand is, you came 3 years, and then 3 years, nothing.
Yeah.
And then an entry-level technician job from someone that is actually working a PhD in biochemistry. And then eventually now you started to engage with people coming to Canada, but not specifically from Alberta. It kind of sparked on you the interest of knowing a little more about the province, more about the economic decisions. Right. So you could actually engage a little bit more in conversations, give more context. And then slowly you actually got yourself into the tech industry, which biochemistry, I'm assuming,
Yeah, like
it's a different,
there's no direct
it's a
link
different
there. Yeah,
industry.
And
right?
my drive again was that technology was disrupting everything, every industry. So it doesn't really matter. It's sector agnostic, right?
It is sector
And
agnostic, yeah.
and so whatever you're doing, you want to be on the cutting edge of
Absolutely.
transformation.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So
Yes.
that was it was my own curiosity. Like, I mean, getting into Alberta Tech, there was no path. There was no clear path for someone coming from a laboratory management kind of industry,
Sure.
then looking to get into tech. There was no way I could have found it if I didn't dig my way through.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it
Literally.
was like, I want to know what else we're doing as a province, as a city. And I started looking for this information. And then I stumbled upon it. And it was great. It was awesome. Like, I stumbled upon this vibrant tech community with people that are so warm. They live by this social contract that it's not enforceable, yet people live by it.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah,
so
interesting.
different than
Yeah, nice
everything I had
observation,
ever seen in corporate Alberta, right? So I was so overwhelmed, I mean, positively, with all the support that existed and the opportunities there and the culture. But I was also taken aback that it wasn't, I didn't see a lot of people that looked like me in the space at the time.
For sure.
So it was like, once you find your way, you will be welcome, but you have to find your way.
That is a great point.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Awesome. You are now connected to the tech industry, right? That's pretty much what you kind of explaining to us. And what was the moment when you were inspired to create something to help immigrants?
So when I was attending all these tech events, CED, Calgary Economic Development, had this campaign, or they called it strategy, I think, the Calgary in the New Economy. So they will always talk about the pillars that's what they're looking for, and talent was a major pillar. And then there was a lot of rhetoric around, we don't have enough talent. Like, we need to find a way to get enough talent to drive the tech industry, to drive all the new things, all the exciting things that were happening. So it was at that point that I thought, like, what do we mean we don't have enough talent? I know a lot of smart people that already have science backgrounds that are working as grocery store clerks. So is it that we don't have enough talent, or we don't recognize them?
Great question. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, great
So that was the trigger for me, really, because the immigration process to Canada, if you come in as an economic immigrant, you most probably have a STEM background, because that's what the process favors. So if you have a STEM background, you get more points and you're most likely to be selected. So you have a STEM background, you're young-ish, like you're usually younger than 40. You're strong, you're healthy, because they test that. So we have this young, vibrant, smart talent pool that we've misaligned. And then here we are, on the other hand, we can't find talent. So it just did not make sense to me. It was a simple common sense thing for me that it doesn't make sense. We need to make it make sense. We need to bring this together. Like, how do we bring the immigrant talent pool into the tech industry so that we can solve the tech talent challenge for tech, for the industry, and empower the immigrants as well?
Yeah.
So, like, it was those two problems that I saw that one solution could solve. So then I got a bit ahead of myself at the time. Like, I wanted to change the whole thing. And remember, I was also new to tech, so I didn't even have the network then. There weren't a lot of people that knew me, other than just me attending all the events I can find. And this was COVID had rolled in at this point. So I was able to attend many events because it was all online. You just say yes to every Zoom invite you get.
Yeah. And that's a different level of interaction, different level of networking. Doing that online, right? It's just different than you.
It worked for me, though. I would not have been able to do that if I had to leave my office physically and go downtown for Rainforest, Alberta, lunch without lunch, for example,
Got it.
like it wouldn't have worked for me. That's one of my blessings of COVID. Like I was able to actually grow more network in Canada during COVID than I had the like 5, 6, 7 years before that. So it was really interesting. So yeah, I wanted to do something that would be like a holistic solution where, and it's still a dream for me. So when immigrants come in, there are things they have to do that is already ingrained into process. So how to get your SIN, how to get your healthcare card,
Yeah.
and like important things like that. People know to do that. They know where to go. So I'm like, why is there no career triage spot as part of the immigration process? So that when people come in, as they're sorting their healthcare, they're sorting their social security, a social insurance number, they also know to go like, oh, this is where they assess my career for what my senior level is, like what my leadership level is, what kind of area I fit in as part of the government process. Because what happens is people just get into the system and then you find yourself just in a pool of, okay, somebody said there's a program there, somebody said you should do that.
That's precisely how it is.
So if you don't know people
right.
already, then you don't get even any of the existing information.
You have scattered information all around the place.
Exactly.
Right? You don't have one source of truth. I mean, at the end of the day, maybe the Immigration Canada website is going to provide you information. But the other thing, again, and this is not my experience only, of course, this is experience of a lot of my friends, right? Pretty much my entire community, navigating through the information where it kind of, my perception of that, if instead of one or two sources of truth where you can go there and again, you're going to find precisely what's available to you, kind of WhatsApp and Instagram becomes your source of truth. People sharing stuff to each other. So interesting.
So yeah, I mean, those are great. We want to continue to see them. I was just thinking about why are we not being strategic about this, right? So I wanted to do something that brought in regulators and other immigrant serving organizations. So it was a lot that I was trying to do at the time. So that was when I founded ReSkill Calgary. I wanted to create like a solution that was end to end.
Makes sense.
It's still a dream.
Got it.
Even now.
Of course.
But there was a lot of problem there because there were already organizations that were players in the space. They are recognized. They are not, I wouldn't say they're exactly solving the problem. Because, and this is another conversation, when you have people who don't have a lived experience trying to solve for a set of people, they don't even understand the problem.
100%, yeah. And you can't blame them. You can't blame them.
You can't blame
them.
Right. Yeah. So not to talk about procuring the right solution when you don't even get it from the inside. So there are a lot of issues where people are trying to do good, but the design is just flawed because they don't understand.
Yeah.
But these are the people that get the support, the money, because they're already known, right? Yeah. So there was all of that obstacle. And then I thought, okay, what can I do that does not require a lot of resources? What can I do that is not exactly a program, that doesn't need to be funded, that doesn't need too much of a structure?
Okay.
So that was when I created Immigrant Techies Alberta, because that's just a community.
Got it.
So all it cost me was to go to meetup.com and pay for 6 months of hosting, or I don't know what they call that. Like that was all that cost me to start it. And then just invite people from the community, invite other immigrants. Like here we're all talking about tech. We are learning together. And because I was also new, right? Like it was just easy to say, I'm not an expert either. Because that's the thing. A lot of the way tech is a little more, it's different now. I'm talking 4 years ago. It's totally different in Alberta, how it looks now. At that time, it still looked like an exclusive club
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
that belong
yeah.
to certain kind of people, certain demographics, certain age groups, certain
Yeah, you get
level
it.
of wokeness, like
Yeah.
all of that
Yeah, you're
is
right.
the perception.
You're right.
So I wanted immigrant professionals to be able to see themselves in tech careers as startup founders, right? And the fact that I leading the group, I tell them like I have biochemistry background. I've been working in project management. Like I'm not a techie in that sense of the word. So it kind of lowered the threat level, I would say. Like people just felt like, oh, it's safe here. We are all learning. So that's kind of how the community grew. The community like that's how we grew. We just host events. It's super casual. We kept it really casual so that people can come and go as they want. And then we're able to bring people from the community to talk about what people want to learn. So we ask immigrants what they want to learn and then find an expert from the community to come and talk about it. And so that way I'm growing my relationship, my network with people in tech, with companies, because sometimes it's a company feature, sometimes it's a topic, some theme. So that way I'm also growing my network, like inadvertently. I didn't even plan on growing a network. I'm just like
naturally happened,
exactly.
Right? Which was just a consequence of it. And this is immigrant techies.
This is immigrant
techies all the way, which is like this community, which was born out of the idea. Okay, what can I do here?
Yeah.
But not with a lot of funds or not with a lot of support. I can actually do something. That's pretty cool. So, but then immigrant taxes has this phase of it, like very community driven. So ReSkill, it is actually a program, right? This is when you offer something different than only the community support, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Can we talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So I think what has happened is working on immigrant techies it was a no agenda kind of initiative, more like just support people, just grow organically. We're not going for anything in particular. But then when some opportunities then came to apply for some funding, because immigrant techies is not a registered entity, it's just a community group, right? So I applied through ReSkill Calgary for that support. And there have been a couple of funding we applied for that we didn't get, but finally we got one, which is through the government of Alberta Workforce Strategies Grant. And that's how we're running this current program called Pathway Pro.
Pathway Pro, yeah, that's the one. And that's actually the one I would love for you to explain a little bit about that. Because again, the audience here is quite diverse. But this one, we're going to, share in our channel specifically for people that are already immigrated, they're going through the same pain, or know someone that's going through the same pain, or it's coming.
Right.
So let's talk about Pathway Pro. It's a beautiful program. So what is Pathway Pro, and how, and what is Pathway Pro? If you can, not only what it is.
How did we get there?
There you go. That's actually my question.
Yeah. So in response to the talent shortage in Alberta, a lot of training organizations sprang up. So now we have people pivoting, people doing boot camps and like trying to learn these new things, get into these fields. And then before we knew it, then we got flooded with junior tech talent.
Yes.
That employers won't take.
Yeah. That's the reality of it. Yeah.
So that's we found another problem, right? We're trying to like create this talent pool to sustain the tech economy, but now we have a lot of juniors. So then when we now have, so immigrants tend to fall into that bucket of, even when they're not juniors, they're treated as juniors. So there's the issue of junior talent, and there's the issue of Canadian experience, where Canadian employers just don't trust that the immigrant professional can do what their qualification and experience say they can do. I mean, that's a whole other conversation.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
This is also a great conversation to have with, friends that, Canadian friends that actually run companies, or, they have great positions in great companies, so we can also discuss and hear also from their perspective what they think. As I'm saying, because this is the kind of conversation I also have, and it's very interesting to have just one brief comment. So last week we had the Stampede Tech Social event, which was a big thing. It was very exciting. Was Neo Financial, was Launchcode, was Platform Congress, Chamber of Commerce, Showpass, Howsam. I hope I'm not forgetting anyone. And it was amazing. 450 people registered. So many people knocking on the door to get more tickets. And at the end of the day, we get more than 300 people actually that went to the event. So it was a big event. And then I had a chance to talk to so many people. I personally talked to 32 new people that I've never met on that day. 32, plus the ones I already know. So. And I talked to. It's interesting enough. I had a chance to talk to 5 different people that are working on the recruiting side. People that are, I've met someone that was working for a big company, 3, 4 actually. Yes, 1 working for a big company and 4 that left big companies and started their own HR services business, and with different aspects, but most of them recruiting. So great conversations. 1 of them, 2 of them, great ladies. We had this amazing conversation. Pamela and Faye. By the way, if you're watching this, Pamela and Faye, it was a hell of a conversation. You already invited you to come to Launchcast, so please come. But and then we just talked about this. That was the core of our conversation. I actually mentioned you. I mentioned Zach.
All right.
I mentioned Margot, right? Different stances, right? But at a certain point, all of you are supporting and trying to help the immigrants just to put things together in that sense. So yeah, the conversation was really good. My take was, even them feel that. They feel how challenging it is. And even them say, it's brutal. I don't know what it is. I know what kind of, right? So there is more to that. Right. I would love to have a conversation only around that for sure. Maybe an immigration series. I know. So my amazing content marketing manager already has that in his mind. For sure, something for us to go deeper. And again, just think about how useful this conversation is. Right? For all of these audiences out there. Not only to give them strength to go through, but for empathy is the first thing, which it is that I am not alone. Right? I'm not alone. There are people out there trying to do this. But let's come back to talking about the Pathway program. Yeah.
So with the hurdle of the Canadian experience, I like to put it in air quotes, of course, because it's not a thing. It's not supposed to be a thing. Yeah. It's not supposed to be a thing, but it is a thing.
It is a thing.
So we have to work around it.
100%. It actually gives you a point on the on the extras entry, right?
So in all the conversation I've had over time through hosting different people for events, and so I've had time to talk to employers and just say, like, let's have this conversation, because on the surface, no employer will put it on their website that we require Canadian experience. Like, nobody says this, nobody talks about it, but we know it happens. So I then say, tell us what the problem is. What's your struggle with immigrant professionals? When you hire immigrants, what troubles do you get? Let's work on it. Like, we're not saying there's nothing there. We're not saying there's nothing of concern there. It's normal for people to have like risk aversion for what they don't know. Yeah, it's a human thing. But let's not brush over it. Let's talk about it, and then we can work around it. Yeah. So we hear a lot of things, and the idea of soft skills, essential skills, is actually more important than the hard technical skills in many cases. Yeah. I've heard employers say, well, when we bring people in for interview, these immigrant professionals, we're just talking to them about how they're, like, did you find our office okay? Did you take the train? And they don't want to talk about that. They just want to skip to the technical part. Right? Yeah, and so they begin to feel like, can I really work with this person if we can talk about snow? Yeah. Right? Which Yeah.
It's interesting that Zach and I had the same conversation, right? He
Right.
actually said the same thing you were saying, like how focused people are on technical skills
Yeah.
and they're missing out soft skills. That's
Yeah.
very interesting. Yeah, same thing.
So yeah. So what my response to that? So what I say to employers that have this concern is it's not the same. So what a Canadian born person would call small talk is not small talk for someone that came here as an
We
adult.
talked about this, right? Weeks
Yeah.
ago. And that was
Yes,
a
we
big
did.
part of our conversation, which was I actually shared with you the experience of my wife, right? And how hard for her it still is in that sense, a little bit better now, but still is. This is small talk is a huge thing for someone
It
that
is.
is not a native speaker.
It
100%.
is.
Even for myself nowadays. I do understand most of it. I do actually try to do more Canadian jokes, although I'm getting better. Making fun of
Because
some stuff. But it's
small
tough
talk
because
comes
it's...
from shared values, shared
Yes,
experiences
right? Exactly.
over time.
Yeah, there you go.
The reason you call it small is because it's what everybody sees and does every time.
Right.
So they don't even have to think about it.
Yeah.
But when you're a newcomer, you have to think about it.
Yeah,
You have to think about what to say to sound funny.
right.
Imagine that.
Yes.
Imagine
Yes,
the
that is so
mental
interesting.
pressure
Yeah.
of having to think about looking like you're relaxed.
Yeah.
So it's not small.
It is not small talk. It's
Yeah.
not small
So
talk. at all,
that's what I tend to tell people who have that as a concern on that side. And then when I'm talking to immigrant professionals, I'm like, yeah, I get it. But you can learn it. Right?
Yeah.
You can learn. It's about being aware, be present where you are, look at what people are doing, and just have curiosity. You want to learn. So they're talking about hockey. You've never played hockey. Ask. Like
Right?
we don't play hockey
Exactly.
in Nigeria. So tell me about it.
There you
Like
go.
what's this about? Like
Ask.
exactly.
Ask. This is absolutely amazing. Okay, so how our audience can have access to the program? How can they know a little bit more about what you do, what your company do, and how actually they can apply for that if that's the case?
So Pathway Pro, the way we've designed Pathway Pro is to solve all these problems that I highlighted earlier. So there's the issue of the Canadian experience, and there's the issue of soft skills. So what we're doing with Pathway Pro is for people who already have experience. They might have done a boot camp before, but they are not coming into this program to learn how to code or how to be a product manager, for example. So they are coming to practice, right? So we're taking those who are already developers, quality assurance analysts, product managers, project managers, designers, and then putting them on a Scrum team. Like we're trying to simulate as much as possible a typical work environment. And then they get this project from a company that's sponsoring that, like providing guidance and providing guidance as to what is to be built. And as part of the program, we also have senior mentors from industry that are actually being paid to mentor people on these projects.
Okay.
So we want people to have more hands-on experience, like what it's like to work with a team, what it's like to resolve conflicts,
Got it,
to
okay.
actually communicate. Like these things, they're not just learning it in a vacuum, right? So we have this technical mentor supporting people through maybe a code review, maybe some details in how to be a great product manager. So we have mentors doing that. And then we have the essential skills workshops component, where we're talking about all these skills. We're talking about design thinking. We're talking about being a culturally aware leader. Because many of the immigrants we're supporting are actually seniors. They've built products already. They just need someone to prove them in Canada. I mean, it's so sad that we have to do this, right? Because the Canadian experience, like I said, it's not supposed to be a thing. But because it's a thing, we are working to give it to people so that the employers can feel like they've been proven right? Like
Yeah.
they want someone else to prove it for them to say, okay, so you can work in a team, so you can actually build a product as part of a team, right? So that's what Pathway Pro is really doing, providing that Canadian experience, the essential skills, because we don't want to help people. We don't just want to help people get a job. We want to equip them with what they need to continue to get jobs or create jobs or
100%,
what,
yeah.
wherever the economy goes. So they're adaptable that way, right? And another component we have in Pathway Pro is actually one-on-one coaching, because from experience, when you face a lot of rejection, there's a way it gets into your psyche,
It does.
and sometimes
Oh,
you
yeah.
just get stuck. And you need a bit of one-on-one support to get unstuck, to remember who you are, to remember what you can do, what you can bring to the table. So we have designed the one-on-one coaching. These are actual coaches, like certified coaches that are doing this. So all that to say that a lot of thought went into the design of this, because we, the developers of this program, we understand where it hurts. So we're able to look at what do the other programs, where's the gap there? For example, many immigrant supporting programs are designed to be full-time for people who are on EI, employment insurance.
Yes.
What this automatically means is that anyone that has come into Canada over the past, say, a year, they cannot qualify, because they have not been around long enough to have had a job and lost it and then be on EI.
Get it.
Neither can they afford to not work and just go into a full-time program. They have to do something to support themselves,
Yeah.
right? So we were able to design this as a part-time program exactly to solve that problem, so that even if people have to still do this survival job, they can keep, body and soul together while they are going through this program. So a lot of thought went into it, and we're still evolving it. And
Do they need to pay for that?
no, because it's a
Right.
it's a government funded program.
Got it.
So it is.
But they do
offered.
need to apply, and then I'm assuming you have capacity, of course, right? You cannot offer that to everyone, right?
Oh, you mean for people to yeah. So right now we're still in the first cohort.
Okay.
And we're gonna have 6 altogether. So there's still a lot of opportunity for people to participate.
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah,
So
that's good to know.
this program is running until March 2025.
Can they apply now?
Yes.
Okay. Can anyone? So if someone is interested about that, they need to go to your website
Yeah,
and they can apply
go
right
to
away.
pathwaypro.ca.
It's okay. So take the note. Pathwaypro.ca. By the way, you can Google it. Great
Yeah.
SEO, by the way. It's very easy to find. Make sure when you search for ReSkill Calgary or Pathway Pro, and that's going to lead you
So if
there.
you go to ReSkillCalgary.ca,
ReSkill
you can find it there
Calgary.ca.
as well. Yeah,
Got
you'll
it.
find a Pathway Pro tab. It's on there.
And they can
as well.
apply, and they can apply there. And I'm assuming, of course, on the landing page, it has all the information they need to make sure they're
Yes.
eligible,
Right.
those kind of things, right? And then once they do that, then you're gonna follow up, you're gonna follow through, and then if the person is eligible,
It's
you're gonna see the
eligible.
ways
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
get it.
Absolutely.
And do they start right away, or is that something they still need to wait?
So the first cohort is still on right now. So that's still gonna happen for another 5 to 6 weeks before we start the second. But intake is ongoing.
So 45 days, at least from the day we're recording, which is for you to be aware, today is the 20th of July, because it's the episode it comes later. So 28th of July, I'm not sure what it is today for you watching now, and then 45 days from now, that's pretty much where the next cohort is going to start, right?
Yeah.
Got it.
Approximately.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, let's wrap up with something. I have a question for. We can talk over and over, right?
I
Because
know.
it's so
there's
fascinating.
There's a lot to unpack.
There's a lot unpacked here. We sure you are committed as a company, Launchcode, to open up this space for that conversation, to go a little bit deeper. Not only because of myself, as personally an immigrant, our COO is an immigrant, right? Our CFO is an immigrant, and our CEO is an immigrant, the co-founder of this company.
Oh.
Of course, they came, years ago. My CEO actually came when he was 6 years old. But again, immigration is not, it's something that is very close to our heart. We have an entire team in South America. So we know how it is, right? We know precisely how it is. So we're very interested in that. So let's think about someone now that is outside Canada, maybe coming to Calgary or maybe coming somewhere, and they saw all the ads, right? They saw the propaganda, said Canada needs you.
Right.
They're now fascinated, like, oh my God, I've heard they need nurses. What they do? It's not easy for you to come as a nurse, so get ready. Okay, so from a very bright perspective and shiny perspective and positive perspective, what kind of advices could you give to all of these people that are either moving already or that just started or actually still are thinking of coming to Canada? What can you tell them?
So I came to Canada in 2011.
Okay.
And it was a different time. That was
It was, right?
Yeah, it was the wild west at the time. So all that to say, now there's a lot of information and connection available. I know people who before they came here, they were already interacting with immigrant techies from outside Canada. So there is that opportunity now. You don't need to wait until you get here to begin to form your network. Because the network is going to be the driver anyways. And you can start building it right from wherever you are. Now that you already know you're coming to Canada, you already know what city you want to come into. There's probably a tech hub there somewhere.
Right.
There's probably some online events they do.
Yeah.
So just join, start building your network before you get here. And another thing is, I know in many immigrant communities, we value education, certifications. We think that's going to be the differentiator.
Yes.
It's not. not here. So here, relationships count a lot, and your demonstrated ability to do the job is more important than the numbers,
than a piece of paper or something like
alphabet
that, right?
behind your name, right? And this is coming from someone like me. I have a lot of alphabets, right?
Right.
But I'm just saying that's not what it is. They are like icing on a cake. That's not what's going to get you ahead. So building that relationship and just having that learning mindset that whatever happens here, you're already resilient. You're coming here, you're leaving everything you've known to come here. So it's just one more hurdle. That open-mindedness to continue to learn is always going to be key. Another thing I would like to add is for people that are particularly interested in tech careers, even if you're not currently in tech, something I like to tell people is whatever field you're in right now, you're a subject matter expert already. And there's some technological disruption happening in that field. There are companies that are solving problems in that area. So if you are looking to get into tech and you're not sure how to start from where you are. Start from healthcare if you're a nurse. What kind of digital transformation is happening in nursing, in healthcare?
Field, yeah, there you go.
And what kind of careers have been created because of that? Because it's an easier pivot if you're already in an industry and you just want to cross to maybe the digital transformation team or something.
Yeah.
So just don't discount all the experiences you've had because it's what gives you that competitive edge as a subject matter expert in whatever disruption field you want to get into.
Because once you own the job, once you are doing, it's interesting. I say the same thing to some friends. It is like the first opportunity you have. It's very hard for you to get the first one, but once you get the first one and you build from there, what's going to happen is that if you are still within the realms of with the boundaries of your field of study, I know for you it was a little bit difficult because that's biochemistry, it's so technical, like my wife, an audiologist, it's so specific. But we have a lot of people in the whole tech industry that are, soft developers or designers or marketers like myself, right? Especially marketers, a very broad topic.
Right.
I would say it is, it is always like, make sure, try to, work hard, connect with those organizations, network yourself, work on your soft skills, understand the Canadian culture, because it's beautiful. I love it, and I've learned from them. I still learn from them a lot. It's funny. It's just a little comment, because this is a very funny one. So I had my family coming over, and I stayed for 20 days in June to July. It was amazing, right? My father, my mother, I never thought they would come to Canada, to be fairly honest. I never thought it. My mother doesn't like to fly. And then
you didn't bring them in winter.
That's
good.
That's good. That's good. They come from a very hot place. So, and then my brother lives in Orlando. That also came, and it was interesting because it was like 2 weeks that I took vacation and just to dedicate to them and to be with them. And then whenever my family comes or whenever I go to Brazil, I realize how Canadian I became. It's funny,
right? And you get a culture shock when you go back home.
Like right on. With some comments, some jokes, but mainly with one great thing that I learned from Canadians, and I believe I walk the talk. I believe, I have to ask other people that work with me, but Brazilians are very European, and more than they want to admit, in my opinion, and very Italian, especially very Portuguese, very Spanish, and then they talk on top of each other, people. And it is absolutely fine. It is just okay. Sometimes the topic doesn't even finish. So imagine myself, ladies and gentlemen, imagine myself being now half Canadian, half Brazilian. That's pretty much how I see myself. Having to engage in conversations where people don't wait for me to finish. So here's a very good tip for you. Learn the Canadian way. I love it. It is. We give space. It's okay. We talk on top of each other, but it's always kind, and at least my experience were kind and gentle. And then at the end of the day, listening is an underrated skill.
Yes.
Asking, it is an underrated skill. Right? If you don't have the ability to do small talk, ask.
Yes.
I love it when you say that.
Well, you don't
Get
understand.
interested.
Ask what it means.
Ask.
Yeah. People are usually
curious.
eager to explain.
They are.
Because these are small, non-threatening stuff anyways.
100%.
So they're just going to go, oh, yeah.
Yeah, right. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? So, Wunmi, how other companies and eventually even other people, they can support the work you do?
So for Pathway Pro, this program we're running, we depending on industry to give us real projects that people can work on and that they can showcase. So we understand it might not be the core of your product because of confidentiality issues and IP. So, but something that our participants can actually build and showcase as a Canadian product.
Got it.
So we're looking for projects like that. So that's one major way to support. And again, for programs that are already running boot camps that are helping people pivot. So what we find is when people finish a boot camp program, if there's no way, a structured way for them to continue to practice the newly learned skill, their expertise goes down.
Got it.
So
Sure.
Pathway Pro is that good next step for a boot camp, a reskilling, like a career pivot boot camp for people that are just coming out. So if people have learned software development, they've learned project management, product management, and they want to keep practicing that and have a project to go with it that they can show their employers, we encourage people to redirect their clients to Pathway Pro, because we are not in competition with existing programs. We're just complementing what's already happening in the ecosystem. So yeah, that would be the two major supports we want: the project and then the participants, immigrant professionals.
The projects and the immigrant professionals, and then
that are
they
coming from other programs.
got it. For to contact you, they can go directly on the website and send a message directly to you, right?
Absolutely.
Or fill a form or something like that, or actually grab the email, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Okay, so this is it. This is one of the most interesting episodes I've ever participated personally, talking about something that is very close to my heart, as also an immigrant. So I hope you really enjoyed. By the way, our now Launchcast is actually available on Spotify, Apple, Google, and Amazon. So pick your preferred platform, and you're gonna be able to hear our episodes, just audio version or even with video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. And for this one, see if you're an immigrant or you are surrounded by immigrants, my special request to you is that for you to send the link of this video to how many people you want, if this is helpful for them somehow. This is for sure. I know my content marketing manager over there, he's already thinking on turning this into a series. He's already thinking an event. I know the guy's mind doesn't stop. And we will for sure try to do this because there is a larger conversation, right, Wunmi, as we were talking about.
Right.
And then at least our company is committed to support the tech community and all of it breadth. Is that the right word? Right? In all of its range. And of course, immigrant work, and immigrant skills that's something that we are I'm personally committed, and our company is also heavily committed because it has a lot of immigrants in that sense. So we know the way, we know the drill. Okay, so thank you very much. Appreciate your attention this time, and then see you in the next one.